The topic tonight, I'm just going to read this daily meditation that comes from ACA in my email because it hit true to home today, and also with some of the sessions I did this week. It's Promise 8, and it says, we will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. Let me read that one more time. We will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. Prior to coming to ACA, we had been unconscious about a great many things. Perhaps the most painful was our unconscious choice of the people we thought we loved, or maybe do love. That's not in there, I added that. As children, we wanted to love our parents, so we overlooked their dysfunction as a way to make them lovable. After all, the alternative was to see them as they really were and leave, a choice that is rarely possible for a child. As adults, we continue to make unconscious choices to love other dysfunctional people until one day we got it. Something was terribly familiar about the people we had chosen to love. It was déjà vu all over again. As we come to consciousness about our childhood experiences and do the work in ACA, we begin to love and accept our true self. Only then are we capable of having healthy relationships with others. We begin to choose people who are capable of truly loving us and who take responsibility for themselves. We are now willing to share our true self, the person we were meant to be, the one who is able to love responsibly in return. On this day, I will examine my relationships, both past and present, to help me understand the choices I have made. I will begin to share my true self with others in my life so that I may find the love I deserve. So I read this morning, and I happened to be doing a video for the website. Those of you that weren't on yet, Bob mentioned that we updated our website. So if you guys have any feedback, I really would love to have it because I built it. So just trying to make it more user-friendly. Anything that you can offer, I really would love. So I was making a video on intensives to actually put on the website. And if you're not familiar with intensives, that's okay. It's long sessions with me, Jen, or Stacy, where we look at past, present, and future. And the intention of an intensive, say that 3 times, is we make full circles. There's sometimes something specific that you might come in to work on. And sometimes, a lot of times, clients come in, they're like, I don't know, Em, you pick. Which it's not really up to me. It doesn't work that way. But together we figure it out. And usually our body is bringing to the surface whatever it is that we're ready to let go of. Our body is ready to release something that is no longer serving me. This is a terrible analogy, and I know it, and I've been using it for over a decade. But it's kind of like a zit. It's when the body's done with it, it's just going to release it one way or another, right? So, amberism, don't Google that. So when I read this Promise 8 today, one thing that stood out for me was I also have a responsibility in who I choose to allow close to me. And at first, I didn't really like that. And I also recognized how much work I've done on me so that I can show up in my truest self. And basically what that means from an ACA perspective is I show up in an honest way, in a place of integrity. And so when I show up in a codependent way, rarely is that honest. And the reason for that is it's not because when I'm in a codependent place or a relapse, it's not because I'm deviant or I'm bad or I'm malicious. It's because I really don't know. And I'm making my best guess at what someone else needs or wants me to be. Because at some point in my childhood, I learned that was the best way to be safe. Because if I had needs or if I had wants, that might have been an inconvenience. I tell the story frequently of when we went out of town, and I have 3 sisters, so lots of requests for a pit stop, and dad didn't like that. It was an inconvenience. Um, so when I read this, what stood out to me was not only my responsibility for my own recovery, and there's an AA saying that I adore, which is, I'm 100% responsible for my 50%. And boy, does that one kick me in the ass sometimes. Because I want to blame somebody else. I want it to be somebody else's fault. And there are plenty of times when it's a vulnerability that I don't want to step into. It's something that hurts. And if I'm showing up in a place of integrity, I'm able to own whatever that is, and I take responsibility for it. The alternative of that is, if I'm pre-recovery or in a codependent state, I find external reasons for my behaviors. I rationalize them, I justify them, I excuse them. And it's not that, again, that is bad, wrong, deviant, malicious. None of those things. It very much is. I'm pretty sure my mom and dad, my dad's deceased, my mom's still alive, but I'm pretty sure they've never met their authentic self. So how in the world would they be able to model for me how to be true to myself? And ACA has a principle that it's not about blame and fault. So if some of you are still in a place where mom or dad are taking responsibility, or you're still in a place of blaming them, that's okay. It's just a part of your grief process. And in almost 18 years of my work, I feel very fortunate to have gone through that, which I did for probably a decade of blame, and to be at a place where it's like, shit, I didn't cause this. I can't control it and I can't cure it. However, it is my responsibility to heal it. Because just because my parents didn't have it to give to me, sure as fuck doesn't mean I'm spending the rest of my life without it. That is a ACA attitude. We're fighters, we're survivors, we're really good at figuring out solutions, and what ACA and recovery gives us. And in our definition of recovery, that's working towards becoming my truest and highest self. Our culture really stigmatizes that towards substance use and abuse. And it may be for some people, and it may not be for everyone. But what we know is substances or behaviors do the same thing to us. They push down, they push away, they get in between me and me. So I don't have the opportunity to show up as my truest self. I don't have the opportunity to take responsibility for something I didn't cause. And I don't want to live the rest of my life in deficit of it. So when I read Promise 8 in my meditation today, it really hit home in that AA saying is, I'm 100% responsible for my 50%. And I'm also really good at showing up with more than my 50%. I'm really good at making things easier for other people. And what that does is it really affects in a negative way my relationship with them, because I'm carrying more weight than is mine to carry, and I'm tired. And when I take responsibility for other people, I'm not taking responsibility for one, which is usually me. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope I was able to draw the parallel from childhood into today, and to be able to look at who I was introduced to and what I was introduced to as love does not mean that I have to accept that as love. And it does not mean that don't deserve to be in my world get to be in my world. Those are really healthy and appropriate boundaries to be able to recognize the difference in love and codependency. And when we get to a state, it's okay if you fake it till you make it to this, because I sure as hell did. When we get to a place of not everyone gets an admission ticket. Nope. Not everybody gets to be in my little circle. There are boundaries, and there are responsibilities. I'm 100% responsible for my 50%. So the people that are in those close circles are people that I say frequently sometimes love me better than I love me, and they show me how to do it. And that's what I mean by I don't have to live the rest of my life in deficit because my parents didn't know how to show that to me. I now have people that show me how to do that for me. Yeah, this one just really hit home today for me. So I hope it was helpful, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys for experience, strength, and hope. So the one that we talked about tonight is called responsible to versus responsible for. And that dynamic in a state of codependency can feel synonymous. It can feel the same. And it's actually very different. When you think about what am I responsible for versus what am I responsible to, even in relationship, what I'm responsible for with my children is their nurturing, their protection, guiding them, supporting them. What I'm responsible for in my marriage looks very different. In my marriage, I am responsible for myself and my recovery because I want to show up in my truest and highest self. And what I'm also responsible for as a mom is my recovery because I want to show up in my truest and highest self. What I'm responsible to in my marriage is my vows. It is our safety contract in our marriage and our non-negotiables. What I'm not responsible for in my marriage is my husband's recovery. I don't have any control over that. I don't have any power over that. Nor does he have any over mine. So when you think about responsible to versus responsible for, it helps us with our roles and it helps us with accountability. It helps me know how to show up and how to honor I'm 100% responsible for my 50%. What I don't want to do is become responsible for my husband. And I sure as hell know he doesn't want to do that for me. And if I become responsible for his recovery, that looks like codependency. That looks like making sure he went to his meetings, checking his phone to see if he's doing something he's not supposed to be doing, watching the bank accounts to make sure that there's nothing coming out that's not supposed to be coming out, looking for secrets, looking for reasons. And most of the time when that's happening for me, it's because I don't feel safe for me, with me, to me. And therefore, I'm looking for something outside of me to control. Let me say that again. When I don't feel safe with me and me, I'm looking for something outside of me to control because it gives me some semblance of power and it convinces me that I feel safer. So when you think about the tool responsible to versus responsible for, it helps me walk in alignment in my relationships. It helps me know what my role is, what my responsibility is. And as a child, if that was dysfunctional, because maybe I played some role in keeping mom safe from dad, or I played some role in if dad was in a bad mood, I would be really silly and funny and cheer him up. If I became responsible for his emotional state as a kid, as an adult, I'm also going to have confusion over what my responsibility is, how to show up in those relationships, how to stay in my lane. So I like to teach responsibility to versus responsibility for as a tool that helps me show up as my truest and highest self, but it also helps me be 100% responsible for my 50%. And what I do for my children is not what I do for my husband. I honor him by allowing him to be responsible for his recovery, and he does the same for me. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. I hope this is a tool that you can apply and ask questions about, and watch it again in a few months. Sometimes it sounds different depending on what we're going through today. So take good care. I'll see you soon.